This is part 3 of this little series of trying to find different ways to salvage your watercolor painting. And as I go along, I find that some things are not as practical as others, but I'm hoping you are getting something out of this experience as well. So after that was dry enough for me to do stuff on, I did take a couple watercolor pencils and my picture and kind of sketched out a rough version of it. This is not going to be what is often called botanical, where you look at the picture and it's going to look identical to the rose that it was taken from. These roses were in a beautiful rose garden up near Greenville, North Carolina, and there's no way I could ever do them justice with my abilities, but I would like to get enough that the demonstration will be successful for you. So after drawing that, I put some of that nasty old resist on there. It's been sitting in the drawer too long, so it actually was past its prime. But I made it work anyhow to get a little spot on there so we can find out if the resist pulls up or not. Anyway, maybe that'll be a ladybug later. Who knows? I mixed a few of my greens ahead because I decided I'm going to kind of go for a very loose background to give a hint of leaves, some shape maybe, and some shades. And I thought I'd go ahead and play with some of these colors to try to get an idea. I may change it up anyway. But as you know, if you've painted any, that the first layer is what they call an ugly layer. It's definitely not what the finished painting is going to look like. So I figured I'd get, if nothing else, a coat down and we can adjust some later. Watercolor is forgiving on some things and not on others. So let's find out if this ground is going to work just like the paper normally does. I'm going to get some water on this flat brush. I'm going to wet the background. Well, so far it wets. It's a cotton paper, and if it had not had the ground on, I kind of know how it should feel, but this doesn't feel too bad. I can tell it's sucking up the water. This may be a problem for putting a loose background on before it gets too dry. Yeah, I got a little bit of, not exactly beading off, but where it's kind of drying and shifting. So let's just water it down and try to get this on quickly before it's too disastrous. I don't want it to dry and make hard lines because the purpose of the ground, I would hope, would be to save a painting and not make a second disaster. But if it does, it's not a really big loss because I would have had to throw this away anyway if that would have been the case. So I'm going to take some of the worst of that water off. I made some darker bluish green, and I'm going to dab in for around the edges. And if that works the way it should, the water and the paper should all pull those colors around to where they don't really look like any lines, they're just shapes. I would do this with a fluffy mop brush probably if I was doing it for painting, but since this is drying as fast as it is, it's really not what I expected it to do. Not what it would normally do anyway. I have to work fast. Gonna let that kind of move around. And when I do backgrounds where they're loose, often I tilt and make it flow and do stuff, but we're not going to be able to do that very easily with this setup. Alright, let's rinse it off, give it a little dry. Let's put some lighter green in there. I want to kind of resemble some other greenery in the back. Put a little water on it. Get that to flow in. Well, I don't know. Normally this turns out kind of bokeh and kind of neat and cool. But I'm having a little bit of where I can see where this just is not going to be as friendly to this as I would like. I could spray it, but then I'd end up spraying the rose and then disaster. Okay. I'm going to give that some incentive to move around. Now, one thing you don't want to do is make it so wet, like that's really too wet. Make it so wet that if you have sizing on your paper, or it may even start to lift the paint away from the center, because water likes itself. And when it coalesces to the edges, it will drag the paint with it. Okay. Now, I'm going to take a bigger brush. We're going to move that paint a little bit. There we go. This is getting a little closer to what I was trying to achieve. I don't want that hard line, but if it does, it does. I promise you, you go to the art gallery, you will not see this painting hanging in it. Maybe a public restroom, who knows? Nah. This is strictly experiment. Okay, I can tell you right now, I'm not a fan of how the ground is affecting the background. Yeah, it's coming out kind of bokeh-like, but Now, true bokeh, I probably would take one of my daubers like this and make them round. I don't have enough room on this canvas to do that very well. Okay, let me put a little, some darker hues, more natural hues in some spots to give it. Not all leaves are healthy and alive. So let's give a little bit of undertone to that. Maybe a little bit up there. Can't see that very well, the light's reflecting. Just to kind of bring out the naturalness of it. I don't know how it looks on film. That's actually kind of like a golden green. But as I put it on the canvas around the other greens, it kind of looks more brown. Okay, put some bright green on there in some spots. I don't like that very well. I want that to spread out more. This is probably not the proper way to do this part. I'm trying to salvage a salvage painting, isn't that silly? Okay, I'm going to let that dry, clean out my brushes, and do all that stuff, and let them shape. These are nice brushes. I will say I'm glad I got them. Big difference from the acrylic brushes. I can feel it already. I actually had a little more control than I expected. Okay, we're going to let that muddle around and dry, and we'll be back for another part. Talk to you then.